Okay, so recently, the last few years, there's been a big trend in publishing, which is fan fiction turned into original novels. From the publisher's point of view, I can see why. You have essentially what is a already tested novel that you know is popular, you know it has a built-in fan base, and potentially has the fan base of the original work who'll be willing to read it. In a lot of cases, some of the editing has already been done. The big fanfic to traditional published books that are coming out this year are all based on Harry Potter fan fiction. I thought it would be interesting to pick one of these books, read the original fanfic, and then compare it to the novel. The book I chose was Rose and Chains. Why Rose and Chains? It was the first one that came out. That's really all it was. I did not know anything about this before I picked it up. I did not know anything about the fan fiction other than it was about Hermione and Draco. Oh, I scratched it. Gonna get less money on eBay. The original fanfiction for Rose and Chains was called The Auction. It was published on AO3, a fanfiction website, from June 2019 to December 2020. It was extremely popular from what I could tell, millions of reads. It was so popular, it was pulled down off the website and reworked into an original novel. There's obviously a lot of ethical issues around publishing what used to be fan fiction, not least because this is based on Harry Potter and there's a lot of controversy about J.K. Rowling. I obviously do not support her, and there is an argument to be made that any interaction with her properties is adding to her cultural capital. And it doesn't help that a lot of the marketing around this book has emphasized the fact that it was once a Harry Potter fanfiction. Copyright-wise, this seems like a very dangerous game to play. But to be clear, J.K. Rowling is not getting any money from me buying this. It may be inspired by her work, but everything that's referenced Harry Potter has been taken out of the book. A lot of people are going to read this and not even know it had anything to do with Harry Potter. I have read Harry Potter, so I know all the references, but I read all the books in a few weeks before the last one came out so I could go to a midnight release party. So I read them, finished them, and then honestly never really thought about them again. So I understand all the references, but I have no emotional attachment to Harry Potter whatsoever, so that will not color how I view this book or I viewed the fan fiction. Okay, so before I start talking about my opinions, I just want to say I have nothing against fan fiction, and the issues I have with the fanfic traditional published book trend is not to do with like copyright infringement, because I think fan fiction is lazy or whatever. It's nice that people are in an online space and they're doing something purely for passion, not for profit. But I do think it's bad for those fan fiction communities that these spaces are now being scraped and turned into another source of profit. Arguably, there's also a big crowdsourced aspect of fan fiction in many ways. A lot of people who are writing, especially popular fan fictions, will have like a beta reader, somebody who is their editor essentially, who will go through their work, who will correct spelling mistakes, who will change things. And I'm not talking about this book in particular when I say this, but I can see this causing some problems in the future, if it hasn't already. Imagine you essentially edit and correct someone's book unpaid because they're part of your community online, and then they take it down to publish it. Essentially, you have now worked on a book, you contributed to it for free, they are going to get paid, the publishers are going to get paid, but you are not. I can see this being one of the big problems that may arise in the future if this trend continues. And before I say anything bad about the auction, I think if people publish something online for free, something they created not for monetary gain, but completely for like a love of the game, love of writing, you should not critique it harshly. But now that the author has taken it down and published it with a fairly sizable marketing push, and I have paid money for a version of it, I feel comfortable saying the fan fiction, The Auction, was one of the worst things I ever read in my life. I fluctuated between being bored, disgusted, and honestly embarrassed to be reading it. And after I read it, I didn't want to go on to read the actual book, but I persevered. I had a real sunk cost fallacy mentality going on, and I'd already bought the book. With all that being said, I will now proceed with my review of Rose and Chains by Julie Soto. There's a little picture of her. Julie Soto was discovered on Archive of Our Own, where she has written many spicy fan fictions. Jesus. Bryony Rosewood. Bryony Rosewood. That's so stupid. Bryony Rosewood is the princess of the kingdom of Evermore, which is at war with the neighboring country of Beaumard, which is ruled by Veronica Mallow. Bryony Rosewood. I don't know where she got that name from. Let's get this out of the way now. The naming conventions in the book are very silly. The magic users who live in Evermore are called Eversons. The island the Evermore shares with Beaumard is called Moorland. The palace of Evermore is called Biltmore, and the castle is called Claremore. There's also some wordplay. The greeting the Beaumard give to each other is "May Veronica Mallow reign forevermore," and then when Veronica is taunting Bryony, she says, "Your kingdom is nevermore." It was so cheesy when she said this that I felt like she was turning to the camera and like winking at me like in Austin Powers. The main conflict between the countries of Beaumard and Evermore is based on their opposing magic systems. Eversons are mind magicians and Beaumardi, is that correct? Are heart magicians. They both have different specialities and powers. I assure you, it's a lot less important than it seems. I'm going to be saying that a lot. The book starts in media res, I suppose you say, in the middle of a battle. Bryony's brother and the king of Evermore, Rory's Harry Potter, dies. This is even more of a tragedy than it seems, as there is a prophecy that was allegedly about Rory. When the sun shines at night, he who will bring an end to war on this land shall be victorious. He shall be an heir twice over and a rightful sovereign over the continent. The prophecy is told to the reader in that very clumsy way where one character is like, I know you know the prophecy and I know it, but let's explain it to each other like we don't. But now that Rory has died, all is seemingly lost, and as in Everson tradition, women can't inherit the throne and there are no male heirs. Veronica Mallow takes over the kingdom. Bryony, knowing she will be captured, tries to hide in the castle as it's ransacked, and this is where we are first introduced to Tovin Hurst. Tovin is Bryony's love interest and a Beaumardi noble. He is Draco Malfoy. He is searching the castle for Bryony, presumably to kill her, but it is revealed that Bryony is in unrequited love with him. This is a good opportunity to talk about the prose in this book, as the first description we get of Tovin is, in my opinion, a very inelegant piece of writing. His long pale limbs were thick with muscles under his black shirt and tailored vest, but his waist still tapered into his black trousers in that frustrating way that had pulled her eyes for so many years. This does not sound good. This is just a description of his clothing. It's clunky. It's kind of weird in that frustrating way. I don't know. Maybe give that sentence another once over. It's like a run-on sentence. Awful. This is the first description we get of the love interest. A lot of the prose in the book is just slightly unpleasant to the ear or grammatically off. In the first few pages, a maid is described as having an accent thick with the vowels from another land. What a horrible line. Someone follows Bryony slowly like a predator ready to put on speed at the end. I think I know what that means, but it doesn't sound right. Bryony is at one point described as knowing the cliffs near her house intimately. This makes it sound like she's having some sort of sexual affair with the cliffs. Bryony shivers without permission. Shivering is like an automatic bodily function. It's not something you do with permission. There are also many little repetitive phrases. Characters are constantly drinking deeply. Everyone has deep bronze skin. Teacups are always steaming. People are always choking back a sob. You can also tell it was a fan fiction because characters are referred to by their hair color constantly. The strawberry blonde, the black-haired woman, the red-headed, or at one point, the rust-haired one. Actual quote. Anyway, Tovin doesn't find her, but she's eventually captured by somebody else. Bryony is held captive with all the other Everson nobles, and it's revealed that they are going to be auctioned off to the highest bidder to be used as heart springs. The heart magicians have like an animal companion, like a familiar, who boosts their magic like a battery. Tovin has a fox. Tovin's father Orion has a hawk. Veronica Mallow has a dragon who gives her like magic mind reading powers. Magic animals may sound fun, but honestly, they don't come up that much. But heart springs are people who can be used as magical batteries. It's normally done in marriage, like when people get married, they share magic, and this is called being someone's heart spring. The Beaumardi intend to use the Eversons as unwilling heart springs. So there is a sexual assault metaphor in there. As much as the heartspring explanation is all nonsense, in the fan fiction, the Death Eaters, who are now the Bomardi, were keeping these women captive purely as a sex thing. Like, all these evil wizards were paying insane amounts of money to keep someone prisoner in their house that will try to kill them at any given chance, just as like a trophy, and to assault them. It's still mainly like a trophy sex thing because the heartspring stuff does involve sex. I do appreciate there's some sort of in-universe reason to keep these women captive. That sounds bad when I say it like that. I do appreciate that there's some sort of in-universe reason why these women are being kept that isn't just a sexual assault. It's not a good reason, but it's something, I suppose. Bryony and the other prisoners are treated horribly, as you might imagine. There is a constant threat of sexual violence, particularly from one of the guards called Raven, who assaults Bryony and tells her he intends to buy her at the auction. Bryony is expected to get the largest bid at the auction, as she is a princess and she is considered to be the most powerful ever-son magic user. Also, she is worth more money because she is a virgin. A lot of this book is about magical virginity, and protecting Bryony's virginity and fertility is like a major plot point in the book. People literally die in order to keep her a virgin. Bryony and some of her fellow prisoners then try to escape when they realize what will happen to them, but they fail as they have been given magical collars that prevent them from using magic. She is then knocked out and wakes up as the auction is taking place. Raven is bidding on her, but so is Tovin Hurst. Tovin Hurst, yes, her love interest, is going to buy her and keep her as his captive. Shockingly, Tovin does not win the auction, but it's implied he makes some sort of deal with Raven in order to take Bryony. You don't find out what it is, but that's something like a mystery for the next book. I'm sure the explanation will be like really compelling. Bryony is magically sterilized. God. There's some really ugly parallels with the real world going on that just make this book seem so tasteless. She's magically sterilized, but the nurse does not perform the spell correctly, so she can still have children. She's then taken to the Hurst estate, and instead of being used as a heartspring, she's given her own room and treated relatively well. Most of the story now revolves around Bryony drinking tea with Tovin's mother and learning how to shield her thoughts so that Veronica Mallow can't read her mind and find out Tovin is not abusing her. She also kind of half-heartedly is trying to figure out what's happening to her friends, but it doesn't seem as much of a priority to her as Tovin's attention. A lot of the plot of the fan fiction is Hermione. It feels so stupid to say all this stuff. A lot of the plot of the fan fiction is Hermione going to these parties that are being held where all the slave women are... Give me a minute. A lot of the plot of the fan fiction is Hermione going to these parties that are being held by the Death Eaters, where all the slave women are shown off and abused for the Death Eater man's entertainment. It's trying to be harrowing, but it's not written with any skill. There's a lot of focus on like the clothing the women are wearing and the decor. It's all a bit too leering about the sexual violence, especially as they are using characters that you know from the Harry Potter books and they're teenagers. It makes it seem like somebody has like Harry Potter dolls that they're torturing. It's very unpleasant to read. I was under the impression that these scenes had been removed when I was reading the book, and I was thinking, you know, say what you like about the book, this was a very good call because they are the most egregious part of the fanfic. But then about halfway through, Bryony has to attend one of these parties. I mean, with the premise of Rose in Chains, you know there's going to be scenes of women being abused and tortured, and it is portrayed as being very serious, but the framing is so goofy and the setting and circumstance is so ridiculous. It's very hard to take it seriously, and therefore it comes off as tasteless. Thankfully, the writing has been toned down quite a lot from the fan fiction, and Bryony only attends a few of these parties, and it seems less of a place to publicly humiliate the women, although that is an aspect, and more of like a magic fight club. The magic system in the book, where do I start? I describe it as complex but stupid. Complex but shallow. I was confused multiple points, and I kept rereading paragraphs and doing like mental equations trying to figure out how this all worked. But I just had to give in because honestly the answer is it really does not matter. Like very little magic's actually performed in the book. The only spell that really matters is one called Heartstop, which is basically the Cruciatus curse from Harry Potter. Also, when you kill someone with Heartstop in the book, it splits your soul in half, like the Cruciatus curse in Harry Potter. Like, I think you should have taken that out. It's a bit too obvious. Same with the complex line of succession of the Bomardi. They don't have inherited royalty, but also once someone is in power, they appoint a successor, and it's normally their son, so they kind of do. But then the next person in line is a different person, and they don't choose who that is. And it's like stonecutter rules, like in The Simpsons, where whoever is higher up on the chain has more social power. It ends up just being like a long list of names that just don't matter. I think this is all to give an illusion of depth in the world. They were like epic fantasies, they have maps, they have family trees, they have complex hierarchies. The book wants to be an epic fantasy so badly, but the world feels so small, it feels so empty. It's amazing how much of the book is just Bryony pining, just kind of sitting in a room, drinking endless cups of steaming tea, thinking about Tovin and waiting for Tovin to talk to her. Bryony is like a princess, but she doesn't seem to care about the people of Evermore at all. Apart from fleetingly worrying about a few of her maids, who she barely knows the names of, she doesn't think about the land or the commoners or her subjects and how they're being treated after her kingdom is invaded. I didn't know anything about Evermore. What is the population? What are its industries? Who lives there? I never felt like more than a handful of people were involved in this war. This is a symptom of it being based on a fan fiction. It doesn't have an original magic system or world or characters. It has to be all written around the fact that there is a void left when you take the Harry Potter characters and lore out. The emptiness of the world, I think, is illustrated by the entirely perfunctory map at the beginning of the book. I mean, look at this thing. It looks like somebody drew a bean, added a lot of mountains, and then put on 5 buildings. Why is this here? You need a map when you're writing some sort of epic where people are traveling great distances and there's a complex and vast world. The book predominantly takes place in a house. There's only 2 countries mentioned. This is not needed as a visual aid, and to me it's just a visual reminder of how shallow the world is. There's 2 schools, there's castles, and there's mountains. That's it. Where'd the common folk live? Okay, maybe I'm being unfair. This is first and foremost a romance book, so let's talk about the romance. One of the things about romantic fan fiction as a medium is that there's often a presumption from the writers that you are kind of already on board with the idea of these 2 characters being attracted to each other. You already think it's a possibility or a reality that these 2 characters are in love or could fall in love. People who would have been reading the auction would have already read Harry Potter, and they know the background of Hermione and Draco and have drawn their own conclusions that they could potentially be in love or were in love. I may not understand why they have drawn those conclusions, but I'm not going to judge. In a lot of ways, writing fan fiction, especially the auction, is kind of like writing a 6th book or the 7th book in a series. The characters are already established and you're just kind of elaborating on what was there before. But if you're writing your own original novel based on your fan fiction, one of the things you need to add is the context for these characters' relationships or friendships or rivalries, whatever you need. And this is what I presume is going to happen because there are a lot of flashbacks in this book. These chapters are to Bryony and Covin's time together at school. Why would a princess be going to school with a noble from a different kingdom that you've been at war with in the past? Shouldn't all these people have private tutors and guards? Well, this is explained. All the noble children from both kingdoms attend school together, and each year they swap from going to the school in Beaumard and going to the school in Evermore. You may be thinking, doesn't this seem dangerous for everyone involved? Shouldn't they have guards? Why would either kingdom agree to this? What if they're kidnapped? What if they're assassinated? Shh, don't think about it. Harry Potter is mostly, if not entirely, about kids going to school. So that would be a big part of the background of fan fiction. So it is also in the book. You just need to kind of contrive a reason for them to be in school together. And if they use these chapters to establish why Bryony and Tovin are so obsessed with each other, I might give the lack of logic a pass. But these chapters are infrequent, they're short, and they don't really establish anything of the prior relationship. When we were first introduced to him in the book, it's implied heavily that they have some sort of history and connection, but you really don't feel they have any connection apart from like reluctant physical attraction to each other. There is no secret romantic relationship or friendship or even a particularly deep conversation. Bryony just spends a lot of time at school looking at him and thinking he's hot, and Tovin spends a lot of time being unpleasant to her. Even if it's revealed, which it will be, that he's an inwardly nice person, outwardly he is prejudiced towards her and seems shallow and cruel. Her unrequited love just makes her seem pathetic. It's obviously worse in the fan fiction because he is like blood racist towards her and calls her slurs, and it makes her seem like sad that she's so obsessed with him. But it's still not good in this book, even though that aspect of the story has been taken out. I do believe it would take a lot of skill to craft a story where I would believe these two characters would be in love. There would need to be a lot of character growth, a lot of redemption, probably a long passage of time would need to go by in order to make it convincing that these were changed people. But it would be possible. But I think a big barrier to that in the story is that they are presented as already being in love when it starts. The character of Bryony altogether is just uncompelling. She's not very proactive as a character. I mean, yes, she's in a situation where it's hard to be active, but this is why this is just not a good storyline, to be honest. And apart from reading some books to like practice cloaking her thoughts, she doesn't do much. She asks to go to these parties to exchange notes with these other women there who are involved in the rebellion, but this isn't something she thinks of or organizes herself. It seems like all the other enslaved women who are in much worse situations than her are the ones who are fighting. Other female characters are literally being tortured and are still managing to kill their captors and cut off their arms to escape and organize rebellions while fugitive. And Bryony just seems to spend a lot of time sitting in her room, looking at her steaming teacup and waiting for Tovin to pay attention to her. Her all-consuming obsession with Tovin also makes her seem pretty heartless at points. Like, she finds out her cousin dies halfway through the book and her reaction is very muted. She thinks, I'm going to tuck my sadness away in my mind so I don't have to think about it. But then a few pages later, she hurts Tovin by mistake and is just like grief-stricken about the idea that he could die. At this point, nothing has been explained about why he bought her. From her perspective, she's just a slave being kept prisoner, while her cousin, who she presumably loved, was trying to lead a rebellion to save her. Like, he's not torturing her, but she's still there against her will. He's been given a lot of leeway by the story because we know as the reader that he's going to be revealed to be a good person, but Bryony doesn't know this. So she seems to be giving him like a not as much of an asshole as you could be award. One of the only points where Bryony actually does do something quite active is when she asks to go to one of the horrible torture parties. Tovin has been making excuses for her not to attend, but she wants to go so she can see how the other women are doing and also so she can exchange notes about the rebellion with one of the women there. The Bomardi men quite brazenly exchange like military secrets with each other, so she thinks she can go and gather information. While at the party, one of the men demands that she sits in their lap. She is described as being repulsed by this, but she wants to appear cooperative so that they won't suspect. Afterwards, she's accused of flirting with him by Tovin. He literally says, "Don't throw yourself at my friends." She is a prisoner who is forced to sit on this man's lap, and he still considers these people who are torturing and assaulting women to be his friends. From my perspective, he's unsalvageable as a character. I'm trying to think what else happens in the plot, but it's surprisingly little. You can really tell that this used to be one full story that has been haphazardly cut up in order to make it 3 books. Oh, Bryony kills someone. Bryony kills someone after he discovers that she can still have children, and they have to change a lot of people's memories. But wait, doesn't Bryony's collar stop her from doing magic? No, because she is already a heartspring with her brother, who is dead. Or is he? No, he's alive. Can't only heart magic users use heartsprings? Why couldn't she use her magic when she was first imprisoned if the collar doesn't work? It's not that important. Okay, that's basically the end of the story. There's some stuff with dragons, but let's move on. This was not good. It's just sad to see how much marketing and hype has gone into the publication of this book. Let's look at this thing first. Like, look at this. That heartspring is mine. Her mouth is mine. Her magic is mine. Her skin is mine. What an ugly quote. Out of context, this is like nonsense. In context, this is horrible. Like, he says this when they're at one of those parties, and it's kind of like he's telling the other men, you can't assault her. She's mine to assault. How romantic. It has like 2 pages of pre-release author recommendations, a list of authors whose books I will never read. It's on display at my local bookshop. It's in a bunch of subscription boxes. There are so many different variations of signed books with sprayed edges, without sprayed edges, bonus chapters, end page art, variation. So much thought has been given to Rose and Chains as a product. But this does not extend to the content of the book. It's sloppily edited, it's underdeveloped, it's boring, and it's at times honestly incoherent. If you liked the auction, maybe you'll like this. I didn't like the auction. I didn't like this either. And if you want to buy it, go ahead. There are like 10 different special editions you can purchase, but I will not be keeping this.